everybody, it's Jane Johnston with the BriarHillGroup.
Hey, and it's Andrew Plank with Royal LePage.
How's it going? How are you doing this week?
You asking me or everyone else out there?
I'm asking you, of course.
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's crunch time, so we're moving at the end of this week, and so packing and moving boxes all behind me, and we're in the middle of chaos.
I call that empathy training.
It is, isn't it? Yeah. If you go through a process of moving or selling a home or buying a home as a realtor, you realize, oh yeah, this is what my clients are actually going through. We see it all the time from different lens. But
so are you changing your the way you do things now that you're moving with your clients?
Am I? Because I have empathy? No.
Yeah.
I always have empathy, but it helps to highlight things where you may have missed. So you're going to hear the cat in the background. He's yowling away. 23-year-old cat, and he's talking to the other world now at this point. I think he's moving his way up. He's more active right now. I've ever seen him, like running around, and
it's probably all the boxes.
Yeah, he's put out. He knows something's happening.
Okay, so first of all, let's just go over the stats for this week. So I'm just going to share my screen here. Application window. All right, so we've had another active month so far.
Yes, we have. It's still.
Go ahead.
Are you finding though that it's feels like there's less listings coming on now than the last week or two?
Well, I always tell people anybody who's listing right now is very motivated to sell. So if you're looking for a deal, now's the time between now and December, and likely you'll close before Christmas. So for some people, I tell them when we write an offer, because the sellers of the properties that we're buying haven't always found properties, that we put a clause in there that just allows us to move the dates to an earlier date so that we can help the seller find a property.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we're at 791 sales to date, which is nearing the end of the month, 26 days in, compared to 619 last year. Wow.
Yeah. So almost 200 more. Well, I mean, round figures, 600 versus 800. Quite a significant up considering we're not even done this month.
Listings that were actually almost identical. Oh, the video keeps cutting in and out. Do you want?
Mine does?
Yeah, I don't know. Somebody said that. Okay, I am going to refresh mine. Okay, and then the next stat is new listings, 917 compared to 918. Total active listings, 2,241 compared to 2,643. So we're still low on overall listings.
Really low. I've got a lot of active buyers right now. I've got a couple of listings that are looking at coming up. I'm encouraging anyone. I know that you just said, and I agree with you, usually this time people are listing because they're desperate, but I'm finding that the market doesn't seem to be turning off, and there's a lot of buyers out there. So if you want to sell, it's not a bad time.
Yeah, and I'm finding I'm getting viewings on properties I haven't been for a while on some of my listings, so they're getting more active again.
Yeah.
Okay, so total number of listings is down. If we look at our last 7 days, we see the list to sale ratio. That's new listings and pendings. It doesn't mean that every listing that came on actually sold, but we're looking at almost a 1-to-1 ratio of new listings pending.
Yeah, even more, which again explains why our low inventory. We're selling more than we're listing.
Right. And the price decrease, again, we're up. So we weren't up a few days ago, but we're up now to 73 with only 6 have had a price increase, which I don't get that. And that sometimes happens when people list a house and they're getting a ton of activity, so they increase the price, which or the data is input incorrectly.
Mm-hmm.
And then number of listings sold is 162. And then we see a total of 27 expired and withdrawn. And that says to me either the listing has come off the market or they're relisting. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, we of the 213 new listings that we see, those 24 expired, some percentage of those will have relisted or will be relisting, unless the people have changed their plans. Withdrawn is generally because somebody's actually changed their plans.
Yeah. Okay. So I just also wanted to go, just of personal interest, I thought we could also talk about where the properties are being, who's buying from where. So this is an interesting statistical report. So it's from the VREB up to January to September 30th, as of October 21st.
So at the end of all of our transactions as a buyer agent, we get a little survey from the board, and the board asks, where did your client come from? And so we fill this information out. The board compiles this, and this is where this report comes from. So it's anecdotal in general. I mean, I'm going to say that, for example, we may be working with a buyer who has been here for 6 months and their current address is Victoria, and we may put them down as a Victoria buyer, but they may have moved here from elsewhere. But generally speaking, you can consider this as fairly accurate and mostly representative. Just wanted to share that as a
Right.
Any comments on that before we go deeper?
Okay, so 90% of people up to date are from BC, with 73.69% of the people purchasing actually already living in Victoria. And almost 3% are coming from Alberta. That doesn't surprise me because of the economy there.
Yeah.
And 4% are coming from Ontario, which says to me those are retirees.
Yeah, I guess you could make that assumption overall. It's interesting to see the Lower Mainland accounts for almost, it's 9%, almost 10% of our buyers are coming from the Lower Mainland. If you go back to the BC stat, that's pretty significant. But definitely the folks coming from Alberta and Ontario, they tend to be, if they are coming here, do you find their price point is a little bit different than a local's price point?
Well, we're coming up in price compared to what we used to be a number of years ago. So we're still less than what people from Ontario are spending or selling for. So they come finding a bit of a deal. I think sometimes they expect more of a deal than they get. And I find often they want to live downtown. They want to live like downtown Victoria, Fairfield area.
Yeah, they've got to set in their sense of Victoria is a little bit condensed in terms of they want to be in a certain area, just close to Victoria, or in the areas that are the high desirability of high value areas, say, Oak Bay or Fairfield, for sure.
Yeah.
And trying to sort of show them the value of other areas, which we'll be talking about later, actually, in this show. Trying to help people understand the value of some of the other areas of Victoria that may not be, quote, on the map, is sometimes difficult, but sometimes really worth it and worth looking at.
So this is the reason why I wanted to bring this up, is because 0.92, so almost 1% of the buyers are coming from the USA, and they may be Canadians repatriating. And this is just slightly larger than last year at 0.87%. But overall numbers are actually down. So it's 54 Americans moving up or coming from America this year compared to 63 for last year for the full year.
It would be higher if the borders were were more open, and we actually had more tourism, and people were actually able to, what do you think about that number just because of COVID?
That's a good point. I think that probably you're right. And I've had a lot of people inquire, and they've said to me that they don't want to purchase without seeing. So it's very hard right now to just to purchase a home. And often you'll see agents now walking around just previewing a listing on the phone, videotaping.
Yeah, I've done that a lot.
Okay, so let's talk about areas. What are areas that are of interest to you?
Okay, we framed this when we talked last was, areas that maybe a little undervalued or a little bit off the radar. We talked before about areas that were kind of our little favorite hidden spots. And this week we're talking more about areas that we think have room to grow, or where we think there's some value proposition in those areas. So I was looking at a number of different areas. I thought I'd talk about View Royal. It's an interesting area because I find that much of my business is either in the core of Victoria or out in the West Shore. And because the core of Victoria is where, as you were saying, a lot of people, when they think Victoria, this is where they want to be, and they want to be, in the center and in some of these very desirable areas closer to town. And then otherwise they choose to go out to the West Shore, where there's more of a value proposition. There's a lot more construction and new construction and a lot of new amenities, a lot of new infrastructure. So you can go out to the West Shore and proportionally spend a lot less money and still have a commute to Victoria of, let's say, 20, 25 minutes, depending on traffic. But in between those two areas is View Royal. And it's this area where I think of these as two centers that are growing. And as they're growing and expanding, the overlap, the middle, is View Royal. Go ahead.
Well, I thought I'd show something funny.
Okay. Is it really going to be funny, Jane?
It is going to be funny.
Okay, I'm preparing myself to laugh.
Hold on a second. Let me get it up. Okay. This is something that came out, which is funny, not funny, but it is funny.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So, which is interesting because it's not including the area that you are talking about, but
yeah,
this is when we talk about the people moving to Victoria. In my mind, this is actually how people perceive it.
Yeah, I'm moving, by the way, at the end of this week into the area that says nothing here anyone cares about.
That's Hillside area.
Yeah.
I actually really like that area. I find you get old character homes. You get sometimes you get a view of the city.
Yeah.
Do you have a view where you're going?
Yeah, we have an amazing view. Yeah. So it's really funny because this area that nothing anyone cares about, the greenish area there in the middle left, top left, it's actually that's another underappreciated area of Victoria. It's very close to town, some beautiful homes up on the hill. Anyway, yeah.
I like the Island of Poverty area. That is Esquimalt and Vic West.
Yeah, that's another great area, and so close to Victoria. I want to be careful about commenting on any of these areas because it's just so unpolitically correct. But there's also some truth in much of it.
Yes.
So anyway. The bottom section there where the Ross Bay Cemetery.
The dead people.
Just dead. Okay.
Okay. It's offensive. Okay.
So now that you railroaded my conversation, I think View Royal is you can get waterfront in View Royal for much less than some other areas. You can get some beautiful homes in the area. There's a lot of construction. The Thetis Vale area that there's a lot of new construction being put together by Lamona Homes. they're a great builder, and their value proposition is quite good relative to what you're paying from some other builders who may not be as experienced or the same quality build, where you're going further out. So I quite like, thank you. I quite like View Royal as a place that is really worth considering, given that it is, it's a little further out than some people who want to be in Victoria want to be, but it's not as far out as Langford Colwood.
Well, okay, so View Royal is a place that's Burgundy right in the middle, and geographically it is close to the center. Actually, Langford and Colwood are probably the center of Greater Victoria. I agree. Well,
when you consider Sooke and everything.
Pardon?
When you're considering Sooke, you mean?
Yeah, if you're looking like from a lot of people talk Sydney to Sooke, but like where Langford and Colwood are the crux of the municipal centers.
Okay.
And I agree. View Royal also agree. The Highlands is an area where people kind of, they forget when they go West Shore, they forget the Highlands. And actually, if you list a property at a listing on Bear Mountain, and if you go up Bear Mountain and on the right-hand side, you're in the Highlands, and on the left, you're in Langford. Many people don't even see the listing on the right in Highlands.
They've chosen, their agent hasn't plugged the Highlands in as an area for them to look at. And so they're not seeing those properties, which keeps the values lower. And you're driving an extra 3 minutes, if that, for some of these properties that are quite nice up on River Road and up in behind there.
Yeah.
And then, of course, also you can access the Highlands off of Burnside, near Helmicon Hospital. And there's some beautiful homes up there behind on your way towards Prospect Lake, and Prospect Lake as well. Actually, that's Saanich West, isn't it? Prospect Lake.
Yeah. Well, it's just between, it's where the dark red and Saanich West sort of area is. Yeah, on the west side there. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely some great areas in the Highlands. It's more about, I think for Highlands, people not wanting to go there as much is its access and the roads and so forth. But it's the infrastructure is less in that area. And that's partly because they keep their taxes low and they're not interested in building a lot of, high density and a lot of infrastructure. But there's some beautiful homes. And for that kind of lifestyle, it's really inexpensive. Yeah, I agree with you. It's a great place to consider.
The other area that's, I think, undervalued, just like a specific sub area, is the Colwood Lagoon area. So you can get a view of the ocean and the city from the lagoon, which is kind of like an amphitheater type of setup. So you're going up the hill and every house has a view. Doesn't matter. And they actually have a covenant over tree and house height there, so the view's maintained. I think that's a great area.
It is, and people really should consider that area. I think that even over Royal Bay, which is, with the Royal Bay development coming in and a lot of commercial infrastructure coming, that's wonderful. But I prefer, if I was to be buying a home, to be along that near the Esquimalt Lagoon. It's one of the best beaches in Victoria. It's a great area to take your pet, your dog for a walk. There's been some attempts to do some development in that area for condos over the years. Some beautiful view condos, a great place for retirement. Pacific Landing is a new development in that area. Way worth looking at. Yeah. 100%.
And then the other area that I've always liked is Gorge, but just east of Gorge is the Tillicum area, which used to be kind of not the best area in terms of safety, but I think it's changing, it's gentrifying. So that's east of Tillicum and south of Burnside area. Yeah.
It's still a mix, but there's a lot of families looking at that area because the price point is definitely lower. And and there's a lot of really beautiful homes. It's not large, not huge, but great family starter homes. And people are moving into those neighborhoods and putting, care and attention into their homes. And it's starting to see a bit of a revival.
And I think a lot of attention to community in there. Is really good.
Yeah.
Also, Sydney. Sydney is, a lot of people think it's so far away, being up on the peninsula there, but really it has everything you would want. Coffee shops, great restaurants. It's flat, so it's attracted a senior population. There can be a bit of noise on the south end from airplanes, but it's not bad.
Yeah. If you're looking for like a village lifestyle, but also wanting all of the amenities nearby, I'd say Sydney or maybe Brentwood Bay. See, Brentwood Bay, speaking of like undervalued areas, Brentwood Bay is a beautiful little area. And if you're looking, if you don't have to commute daily, you've got some beautiful views of the bay. Sometimes you've got a nice village center there. That in central Saanich, there's a couple of really nice villages in that area and really good value.
Yeah.
But you're right, Sydney. I've always enjoyed, if you ever go to Sydney for an afternoon, it's a nice outing. You can go have a great lunch. There's really nice amenities there. And, if you live anywhere in North Saanich, you can always, that's where you're going to go for your, your groceries or what have you. But Sydney's a great little town and a wonderful place. And if you have a boat, if you like to sail or do any kind of boating, that kind of the North Saanich area is where all the marinas are and all of the, it's a little bit more of a retirement lifestyle for folks with maybe a little bit more disposable income to explore and play.
Yeah, and it's a boating area because
well, look at all the islands around you.
Right. And a lot of them are provincial parks, so you can actually take your boat. It was one of my best holidays that we ever took, was just sailing around the islands and stopping and having dinner in Vesuvius or Ganges on Salt Spring, or going to, I'm trying to remember the name of the island. And they had this little boat that was selling cinnamon buns. It was so good. And you'd ordered them the night before. Okay, but and
I digress.
Okay, so the other area I'm finding, lots of people are going up the Malahat into Cobble Hill, because it's about a 20-minute commute from there to Langford. So anybody living or working in the West Shore is looking up the Malahat. And then Souk, I'm still finding it needs a little more infrastructure out there. I think it needs a hospital, personally. And I used to teach out there. I found it's changed a lot, developed a lot. It's really gentrified in terms of the average price of the homes is gone up, but you can get entry-level homes there that are affordable that you can't get elsewhere in Victoria.
Relatively speaking, affordable.
Yeah.
Relative to Victoria, it's way, way less money. And you have the commute to do if you're coming in and out of work to work. But again, if you Souk is a really good value for sure. I was gonna, when you brought up the Malahat, I thought of the Shawnigan Station. There's a large, there's some development out there that's on the way to Shawnigan Lake, up at the top of the Malahat, off the Shawnigan Road there, and I was out that way showing property in Shawnigan, in the village of Shawnigan, and we drove past it, and my partner hadn't really been aware of that space before, and I've got to say, I don't want to talk trash, but I don't know why someone would move there other than for money, like because it's cheaper. There's not really much infrastructure around you there. You're kind of it's a subdivision of newer construction homes in the middle, and they're very inexpensive, but it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. And the only real compelling reason to buy there is to save some money. And that's never been a really good argument for me. If you're going to, the thing I've learned in real estate, and I just wonder if you agree with me here, Jane, is like, even if you have to go further out, buy something where you're going to get a community or you're going to get some infrastructure around you, and you don't have to drive for 15 minutes to get yourself some eggs and milk. And to me, that whole an area there like that doesn't make as much sense to me as something that is either closer into town that's more convenient, you're going to save time and money on all your driving, or going even further out and going, for example, to the village of Shawnigan, where maybe you're finding an older home for the money, but you're at least in a village.
You're talking to the wrong person. I live in the country.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the Shawnigan solution is you're living in the country with cheek on jowl with a bunch of other people.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean, but I think so.
I'd just love to see some more infrastructure there.
Yeah, I think they need some stores out there. There is some commercial development in that area, which is more storage related rather than community. I agree. You do have to drive at least 15 minutes to get to the store. We bought in Shawnigan Lake, so I drove by there a lot this summer. Some of those places have an awesome view of the valley facing west to Souk. So it's stunning. It is, I think it's a Bearland strata, so there's a fee as well, and you give your neighbors a little bit more control over your life. But I would say that's going to rapidly change because of everybody moving up and discovering the Shawnigan Lake area, and I think there's going to be infill in between there. So I think it's just kind of like Souk used to be way out there, and then there was nothing around it, and now it will develop eventually. It's not there yet.
Right.
And I know what you're saying. But
I guess, and I hear what you're saying too, and that makes sense. As infrastructure grows, if you build it, they will come. The Goldstream area of Langford, which is out past, like just near Goldstream Park, before Langford developed over the last 15, 20 years, that was just that little extra leg of drive, and a lot of people didn't want to go that far. And now that Kettle Creek is built into that area, and the whole West Hills and everything else, and the parkways and so forth, it's all more connected now, and that's an area that is no longer considered too far out. And so eventually, same with this.
So well, when I moved here in 1999, and I was doing a master's at UVic, and I got a co-op job at the government, and we went to a meeting in the forestry building. Do you know? And I thought that was so far out of town.
Right.
It's like 5 minutes.
No, exactly.
No perspective, right?
Yeah, and if you grew up in Comox, then driving to Courtenay was a long ways away, and the difference between Courtenay and Comox is nothing really versus some of the areas here in Victoria. So there's that. Hey, while we're still on the areas, I want to point out. I was going to mention offline. I was talking to Jane. I mentioned Willis Point as an area too, for people to consider if you're looking for, to be far away, to be kind of in a secluded area without having to actually go too far from the city of Victoria. Willis Point is an area of very rural homes. It's an area of waterfront homes that you can purchase, waterfront sometimes with a dock, for let's say 2/3. Sometimes half is probably a little far to say, but a lot less than you're going to find some of the other areas of Victoria, and yet it's really got its own little unique feel. And I know a number of our colleagues have lived and bought out there and really enjoyed their time at Willis Point. I was considering buying out there when I was first looking for a home back in the early 2000s, just simply because it really caught my imagination. It's kind of a bit of a different space, and it's worth the drive if you've never been there, because I think a lot of people in and around Victoria have probably never been to Willis Point.
Well, where I live in Metchosin, I live on the Duke Road area, which is known as Albert Head and Olympic View. And we used to live at the far end of Metchosin at Pearson College. We lived there for almost 20 years. And we bought this place in 2012. And I had my eye on this area because I felt that if the gravel pit ever developed, which is now doing, that it was an awesome area just to kind of get the best of both worlds. Same as you were talking about living in Shawnigan. We had to drive at least 10 kilometers to get to a store. Well, now that's 5. So
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
there's other realtors living in my area. So I know that it's
You can't throw a stick without hitting a realtor these days. They're everywhere.
Well, I mean, I think if a realtor says to you, I would buy in here, maybe that's the litmus test. If they say they would buy, and knowing that they are generally going to recommend something they're familiar with, that's a really good.
Can you go back to that map that says no one, why would anyone, what was the thing where I bought? Nobody wants to live here.
I love that area.
And I know, yeah, exactly. And there's other realtors I know in that area. And so they're going to be my competition as I start to sell in that area. But yeah, there's areas that traditionally, this is the thing with Victoria, it's always evolving. And things that, you know, if you've come to visit this place or heard from somebody, oh, don't go to that area, or you know, this is area you should be in, maybe, you know, take off those glasses and look at what it looks like now today, and where is it at, and what does the future kind of look at. And I always try to get clients to look at this and say, what's your lifestyle like now? What is it going to look like in 5 or 10 years as, let's say, your kids are growing up or you're moving towards retirement or whatever it is? And how does this whole area look like? What's the direction everything's going?
I find it interesting coming from Toronto, because Toronto really changed from the 80s to the 2000s when I left. And then it's changed again. I think the population of Greater Toronto is 7 million. And just looking at, and Victoria, I'm sure, is about to explode because of shows like this, where we talk about how great it is to live here. But I just foresee, for me, if I were to buy, my next house is going to be in Esquimalt, for sure.
Yeah. Do you want to talk more about Esquimalt? We didn't really get into that, and that was.
Well, I think they have everything. First of all, they have a fabulous mayor, Barb Desjardins. I have an I Love Esquimalt Facebook group because I love it so much. They have hockey and speed skating. They have arena. They have curling. They have great community center where you can work out with a pool. And then they're very community oriented. They have their what's it called? Pirate Days in the summer, and they have the fair come. And the only thing is, I would say they probably need another big grocery store there, but and
maybe another bridge.
Yeah, but you're only, like, my kids went to Brodeur, which is we walked with them downtown, and it was a 20-minute walk.
That's true. And the West Bay Walkway is a beautiful walk coming in and out of town.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Rock Heights Park. And then, of course, part of Esquimalt is along the gorge where you can get waterfront. And I remember selling a waterfront duplex there about 5 years ago. And we had to beg for realtors to show up because they thought, Esquimalt. But south facing, it faced Kinsman Park, and it went for like $980, and the guy who bought it was a tenant who was from Vancouver, so who realized the value.
Yeah, I just have clients that just got into a home in Rock Heights that, this, relatively speaking, it was inexpensive. They're under just a little over 800,000 for a 50s home with a existing suite and a good shaped suite, and they've got beautiful views looking to the north off the backyard there. And it's a big yard, and it's not a super busy road. And for Victoria, relatively speaking, this was a good, solid home. And you just don't find that if you go into some of the other areas of Victoria, or you have to go further out.
Yeah.
And so, there's some of my favorite areas in Victoria to visit and to play is like Sax Point, Macaulay Point. There's a boat launch there too, if you like to go fishing. And then, of course, there's some beautiful waterfront, as you mentioned, and there's so many different areas and pockets of Esquimalt that there's a little bit of something for everyone. Infrastructure is starting to come together. There's a Red Barn Market now. which gives a bit of a different shopping experience than it's the old country grocer, I guess, is the other one.
Yeah, and they're building new condos. Like
Yeah.
you can buy some crappy condos in there, which I would not go for. But there's new construction. There's $1 million condos on Dunsmuir.
Yeah, Sparrow Landing.
Yeah, and then new development that just come up along there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's all building in, and if you think about it again as a sort of a concentric rings moving from the center out, Esquimalt is so close to the center, and yet hasn't really been as much on the radar, and it now is. And the folks who've lived there, and we have some mutual friends, I think, that live there that have bought there, and I've always said, I can't believe that this isn't more coveted. And then in the last couple of years, it started to be more coveted. But it will. Oh, some of those beautiful homes along Sachs Point, it's just stunning. And again, you try to buy that in Fairfield, and you're paying way more money, and yet the homes and the neighborhood is gorgeous. So definitely. Very successful buys in there for clients in the last few years.
Yeah.
Really happy for them, and I think long term it's a really good move.
Yeah, exactly. And the beautiful old character homes are amazing there, like along Rock Heights. Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So
what do you want to talk about next week?
What shall we talk about? Did we talk about like renovations and like what we can do to increase the home value? What kind of things? Like I've been receiving calls lately from folks going, I'm thinking of a kitchen reno, and I'm wondering about maybe taking this wall out, and so on and so forth. And that's more of a question maybe for an engineer or a contractor or an interior designer. But as a realtor, there's also the question of what does this do for my property value and my resale? So we could talk about that maybe.
Okay.
What does it feel like when you see an addition on a home versus like purpose built?
And let's talk about doing it with permits.
Yeah.
And getting a professional in as opposed to not. And what are the problems?
Yeah. What are the ramifications? Good question. Okay, perfect. We've got a topic.
All right. So next Monday, which is going to be, oh my goodness, we're going to have to do that in 2 weeks, because next Monday we're going to do our review of the market, which is going to be November 2nd.
Yeah, and I think I had something, what was it? So November 2nd is...
And then November 9th, we'll do the renovation for profit. Okay, so next Monday at 10 a.m., November 2nd, we're going to be doing our market review. And that will go live at 10. And then on the 9th, we will be talking about renovating. And maybe we can bring somebody on.
Maybe.
Yeah. So we'll see. Okay. All right. So everybody have a great week. Hope you found this instructive. If you have any questions, contact me. I'm Jane Johnston with the BriarHillGroup at REMAX Camosun. And you could reach me at 250-744-0775, or
you can reach myself if you have questions for me at Andrew Plank at info@andrewplank.com, or call me at 250-360-6106.
Okay. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next Monday at 10 a.m. for our market update. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.